Streaming live, this is News Nation Now.
It is finally Friday. We have made it to Friday. I am Aaron Nolan. Thanks for joining us here on newsnationnow.com and the News Nation Facebook page, plus your local station all across America. Yesterday was a big day as President-elect Joe Biden unveiled his America Rescue Plan. It's a $1.2 trillion coronavirus plan, includes financial help to individuals via stimulus, vaccine help. State and local governments and businesses are also included in a possible third stimulus check. Let's get right into why this is a big deal. Global finance expert Scott Shellady, also known as the Cow Guy, joins us now. Scott, thanks for being here on News Nation.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, Scott, we heard the news that President-elect Joe Biden unveiling an American Rescue Plan, $1.9 trillion. You know the world of finance very well. As we're talking about small business first, how much do you believe that small businesses all across America really need something like this?
Well, they desperately do. Let's say up until now, and I know the number is going to rise, we've lost 20% of our small businesses. I bet that goes to 40%, unfortunately. We've just had some jobs numbers. A week ago, we lost 500,000 jobs in the leisure and hospitality sector, which basically is restaurants. We had a jobless claims number yesterday that came out much greater than expected. So we've got between 19 and 20 million Americans still on some sort of unemployment assistance. We had more numbers out today that said that retail sales didn't come across the tape like they thought they would. So here's the deal. I'm not a fan of stimulus. I'm not a fan of giving away money. But when you make the decision to shut down the economy, that's the price you got to pay. So if you're not willing to pay the price, don't shut it down. But if you're going to shut it down, the government's got to step up, because when they take away your right to work and your right to free assembly, they got to pay you for it, right? They can't take away your right to work and make you sit at home and go bankrupt. So this is what that's about. The problem is we don't have the money. That's the big problem.
Scott joins us now as we're talking about a stimulus package unveiled by the president-elect, soon to be president of the United States, in just a matter of a few days. If you're joining us right now on Facebook, maybe your local station, ask Scott any questions. Scott's going to be here for the next 10, 15 minutes. We're going to be chatting about all things finance. Scott, as we continue to look at the possibilities of this new stimulus package, how much of a difference and how much of a need is there for individuals from the $600 checks that went out 2 weeks ago to the possibility of more stimulus going out in the first few weeks of a new presidency?
Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure, even if it's $2,000, if that's going to save you from your debtors. It's something, and I'm sure there's people that are on tight enough of a budget that might just save them. What my problem with the whole thing was this, whether it be 600 or 2,000, Congress got all tied up in whether it was going to be 600 or 2,000. The American people are a pretty commonsensical people, and had they would have accepted 300 or 600 or whatever the number was, as long as we weren't giving $700 billion away to other countries for gender studies in Pakistan, right? If we weren't sending anything else, abroad, the Americans would have said, all right, well, 600, it's 600, that's what we get. But no, Congress has to get in a fight over whether it's 600 or 2,000. When the American man on the street or woman on the street really was probably more upset that we're giving away our hard-earned cash, and that was the issue. So 2,000 is going to be obviously 3 times better than 600, but I'm not quite sure that's going to be enough to save most of America. What would save most of America, and unfortunately nobody's got the stomach for this, and I've been banging on about it since last March, is we never should have shut the economy down. We need to open up the economy now.
Scott, I've been following you along on Twitter. On January 6th, you said something interesting to me. I'd like you to dive into this. It's no longer an exercise in investing, but has become a game of speculating on public policy. And we're talking about the policy of the president right now, and this directly rolls into the possibility of investing. What exactly did you mean by that tweet?
12 years ago, almost 13 years ago, in 2008, when we had the last financial crisis, the whole game changed. It used to be about the facts, the figures, supply and demand, all those things that you would have learned in your finance class pre-2008. But after 2008, the Federal Reserve and the government got so deep into trying to rescue everybody that they've really distorted what I would say are natural asset prices. That means the price of stocks. That means maybe even the price of your home. Across the board, we've got the Fed in our back pockets distorting reality, and if they do it long enough, it will become reality, and that's the problem, because it's not. And so now, as a finance person, you're trying to gauge public policy rather than the facts and the figures. And I think that's a very dangerous game. So the sooner that we can get the Fed out of our back pockets and get back to normal, but the problem is that means ripping the Band-Aid off, and that means no money anywhere. We can't afford anything. We have to really face up to the facts and run the business, run this country like a business or your own household. And I don't know if anybody's, well, I definitely know that Congress doesn't have the stomach for that. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of America would be, have a difficult time with that. I just, public policy, to try to guess what that is, that's a finger in the wind, because you know how often these Congress people change their minds. We just need to let people make up their own minds once they've been given the information. And that information is of how you want to stay safe. If you want to stay safe, if you're not worried about it, that's fine. But we have to open up the economy, because as long as we keep this economy shut down, or we keep putting on a ball and chain to the economy, like yesterday with the airlines putting, you have to have a negative test to get in the country. Well, that's going to have to come out of somebody's pocket. We keep putting up these barriers that are going to slow down our recovery. Everybody wants to believe it's going to be in April. It's no way it's going to be in April. We have to wear a mask after we've got the vaccine. If you have to wear a mask after you have the vaccine, does that mean we're going to have to socially distance too? I say yes, as ridiculous as that may sound. So now we're going to ask our restaurant and leisure sector to try to work on 50% of the revenues again for the year. I mean, it's insane. So public policy is driving your financial decisions now, which it did a little bit in the past, but really you could go down to the brass tacks and look at supply and demand and all the natural things that you used to learn about in school. But now those are out the window, and it's 100% public policy, and you know how quickly these congressmen change their mind. That's the problem.
If you're just now joining us here on News Nation Now and the News Nation Now Facebook page, as well as local stations all across the country, thanks for joining us. I am Aaron Nolan, joined by Scott Shellady, also known as the Cow Guy. He's a finance expert. Scott, up next, as we look at the stock market and we look at the fluctuation that happens each and every day at that market, what is the difference going to be from a Trump stock market to a Biden stock market?
Well, right now there isn't really any difference. There's two. Trump gave money back to the constituents via tax cuts, so you pay less tax. The Democrats are going to give money back to the constituents with a check, but they're both giving back money. One just is in a different fashion. So those are going to be both the same. So instead of a tax cut, I would argue tax cuts probably are better. Oh no, definitely are better, because they're going to be longer lasting than a one-off check. And hopefully that money would flow back to the economy, and your tax receipts would be bigger, and you could get yourself out of debt, or at least get yourself out of spending money you don't have. So right now, I think they're going to be largely the same. The danger here is, and everybody should really take heed, I think, is that all the pundits on television, all the talking heads, all the guys that think they know what they're or gals too that know what they're talking about, they're all in the same boat that this big Biden government's going to spend. They're going to print money. They're going to flood the markets with money, and that's given rise to the stock market, because people think there's really no other place that this money is going to go, and people are jumping on board. And so in doing so, we've got the vaccine out. We've got a government that's going to be spending money. A lot of pundits, I'm going to say 95% of them, and I'm not in that camp, by the way, have now thought, and they're putting out notes saying that, look, this is going to be good for the economy. It's going to be great for the stock market. Get on board. I can understand where they're coming from there, because throwing a ton of money into the system is going to help the stock market, because it really is. I mean, when you give your money to the government for 10 years at 1.1% interest, that's not happening. And so that's the natural thing to think about is, yeah, it's probably going to go to the stock market if it does at all, because this $2,000 really is going to be what people need to kind of survive through this. However, I say that we have some big cracks in our foundation, and all of those things that these pundits have been talking about are predicated on the fact that we have a great foundation or a good economy, and we don't. I mean, look at the job losses. We were expecting a gain of 75,000 jobs last Friday, a week ago today. We lost 140,000. That's a big miss. Yesterday, we had jobless numbers come out again. We had a big miss to the negative. And so I'm seeing the cracks in the foundation. And then now, in the expectation of inflation, which we don't really have yet, in the expectation of a lot of money hitting the street, we've got interest rates, or bonds are starting to rise. Interest rates are starting to rise on the markets, which will cause mortgages to rise, which will cause your credit card interest rates to rise. And so they're getting out in front of something that they think is going to happen to the good. But I say that it's being built on something that's got some cracks in it, and maybe it's heavy enough that really make those big cracks crumble. And that's the problem. Our economy right now isn't that great. And we have to be careful about getting too excited and borrow all of this happy news from quarter two and quarter three and pull it forward, which is what the market's doing. We're borrowing a lot of good news. I call it hopium. The market's trading on hopium, that things are going to get better sooner. Yes, the vaccine is here, but a lot of people don't like it. The rollout's been horrible. It's not going to happen as fast as we thought. Yes, Biden's in power. He's going to spend a lot of money, but he's going to spend a lot of money, and we got to hope that our economy is there to be able to take it, and I don't think it is. So I would say right now, yellow flag, caution flag for me, although a lot of pundits believe it's going to be fantastic, because I still think the U.S. economy needs a lot of work.
Scott Shellady joins us now here on News Nation. Scott, we've got a question from Kathy. You mentioned it briefly, talking about inflation rates with the likelihood of a third stimulus coming. What does that do to the value of the dollar?
Well, the dollar trades in a basket, and right now, I haven't checked early this morning, but it's around 90 is the big figure on it. And the yearly range on the dollar is 89 to 103. So we're already at the lower end of the dollar, because when you print money and you release a lot of capital out there, it does weaken your currency. And there's a reason why they actually know that's going to happen. They want their currency to be weaker. The administration wants our currency to be weaker because it makes our goods and services much more attractive and cheaper to those abroad that are buying them. So that's supposed to be a shot in the arm for you, and that could stoke inflation. But the problem is, we've been really trying to do this since 2008. We've been trying to buy inflation, borrow inflation, steal inflation, as have all the other Western economies around the world, because we're kind of in the same boat together, and we haven't really seen inflation rear its ugly head. Now, yes, I deal a lot in the agricultural commodities. They're through the roof this year. We might even have a food shortage here in the States. They're seeing massive inflation in their prices, but it's not across the board. So it remains to be seen if this time is different than all the others, which I don't think it's going to be. I would say to the question, the person's question, you'll be able to see the inflation get started, because we've been talking about inflation for 13 years. And again, we've been trying to beg, borrow, and steal it. If we found a new planet with maybe inflation on it, we try to steal it from them, but it just hasn't come to fruition yet, because you know why? I just don't think the economy is at the point where it needs to be to really have that start to take place.
Got another question from Leanna. How much have you done as far as research on the stimulus package? And I asked that because this next one's kind of deep. How much of this stimulus package suggested by Biden will be going to other countries? There was a lot of talk about the second stimulus, and how much fat was in it. How much do you know about the possibilities of more money going to other countries?
All I know is the last one had about over 700 billion. I have not seen what this one is, but I'll tell you this. If it's more than $1, it's wrong. Because how many other countries around the world, to all the people that are listening or watching, how many other countries around the world take money from their constituents and send to the U.S.? How about zero? So we have to start to look after ourselves every now and again. And especially in this time, we're giving out stimulus. And by the way, before we start doing a victory lap and high-fiving about the stimulus that's being given to you, remind yourself that it's just, they're giving you your own money back, okay? Governments don't make money. They take and redistribute money. So they're taking your money and giving it back to you. That's all that is. So they're letting you keep a little bit more of your hard-earned money. They're not giving you anything. But if we're going to be giving away our hard-earned money to other countries for ridiculous things like in the last plan, gender studies, I mean, that's got to incense every American. So until I think we're on our feet, I would say, and I know it sounds terribly nationalistic, and I know that there's a lot of people that think that that's a bad thing, but in times of strife, you look after your own team members first, and then when you're healthy, you can go out to help everybody else. Remember, that's about putting your mask on an airplane, right? So we got to make sure we can breathe, and then we'll help everybody else.
Scott, we've been talking back and forth about this stimulus. At the root of it, for you being an expert in the world of finance, is this a good thing or a bad thing? First, for the economy. Secondly, for our businesses, our small businesses. And third, for individuals.
Well, if the government decides to shut down the economy like they did in March, which I was 100% against, this is the price you have to pay. Unfortunately, we don't have the money. So they made a choice to do something that they couldn't afford to pay for. And now we put ourselves in a situation, just as a business, if the country's run it as a business, at a very big deficit. So all the money that everybody is getting, over this next new stimulus plan is money we don't have. We need that money to try to stay solvent. And so net long term, it's a bad thing. But in the short term, you have to make sure your constituents are alive so that we can live to fight another day. And that's what they're kind of right now not really caring about, how much it's going to cost down the road, because we want to keep everybody alive today. But at the same time, these are the consequences that you have to pay when you decide to shut down and take away the right to work from the average American. And if you didn't think about that in March when you made everybody shut down, well, then shame on you, and you shouldn't be running the country, because this is the cost of shutting down the #1 economy in the world.
All right, Scott, that is all the in-depth stuff we need to talk about, but a lot of people right now on our Facebook Live page and the stations across the country are asking about your outfit. So let's talk a little bit about why in the world on Twitter you're known as @ScottTheCowGuy.
Yeah, well, I've been in the markets for 33 years. My father started in the markets in 1962. We've got a long family history in the markets, but we also have a family farm. And one of the markets my father did a lot of work in, and I have done myself, was at the Chicago Board of Trade in the agricultural space. Now, I've branched out and I do much more now in public policy and interest rates and equities, but I still do have a firm foot in the agricultural arena. And about 30 years ago, my father decided to wear a black and white cow jacket in the pit, because we raised Holstein cattle. We milked 200 head of cattle twice a day when I was a kid. We have a family farm. Well, that garnered a lot of attention, but back then there wasn't any big money. There was no television shows devoted to finance. And so about the time my father retired, I took up it's like a game worn jersey, right? So I decided to wear his jacket because a lot of people would be in the visitor gallery in Chicago and they'd ask questions, and they'd always ask, "What's the guy wearing the cow jacket for?" And the answer was, he just wants to bring attention to the fact that there actually is an important economic function being done down there. They're actually discovering price for what we're going to be eating and killing and culling for the next few weeks and months. And it's not just gambling. It's not Las Vegas. Well, anyway, the short story long is that when I started to wear the jacket, there was a lot, all of a sudden we had news crews, television shows, and they wanted to know what the fat guy in the cow jacket was doing. So this is where I'm at now.
And you stood out there. Now, did you add on the cow print shirt, or did Pops also have that?
No, as the brand started to build, and it's built to, it's the #1 brand in the futures and options industry around the country, and now actually maybe even globally. I spent 16 years in London, so I always make sure I have a little something cow on, because people look at me and they think they recognize me, but if they see something black and white, it all kind of clicks into place, whether it's the pilot on my plane back from Tokyo a year and a half ago, or somebody in Venice 2 years ago, or somebody in a local restaurant here in Chicago. It's always nice to be able to help them remember by jogging their memory with a little something black and white. So I put the shirt on.
All right, Scott. It was awesome chewing the cud with you, my friend. Yeah, maybe I should move that joke out of here.
Oh my word! Yeah,
I know. Scott, thank you. You can follow him. It is @ScottTheCowGuy. We appreciate you spending some time here on News Nation breaking down the stimulus package.
All right, thank you.
All right, there you have it. Scott Shellady, also known as the Cow Guy, joining us here on News Nation and the News Nation Facebook page. If you're watching from all across the country on your favorite local television station's Facebook page, we encourage you to join us each and every day, starting at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock out on the East Coast. It's News Nation. We're a brand new network. We're not going to tell you how to think. We're going to drive that center lane, not left, not right. We'll give you the story and let you decide how you feel about the news. That's our mission. We'll continue to do it in an unbiased way. I am Aaron Nolan. Have a fantastic Friday morning. See you next time right here on News Nation.